Welcome back to Us Mint Mysteries, the channel where ordinary pocket change turns into jaw-dropping treasure. Today's video is not just surprising, it's shocking. Because hidden inside old drawers, forgotten collections, and even everyday change are 7 ultra-rare Roosevelt dime coins that collectors are willing to pay hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars for. Take a close look at this coin in your hand right now. Because at first glance, it looks ordinary, even rough. This is a 1995D Roosevelt dime, struck at the Denver Mint. And yes, this one is in no fine condition, with a rusty, dark surface that most people would instantly toss aside. But here's where the story takes a sharp turn. Because coins like this are exactly where hidden surprises sometimes live. The Roosevelt dime was created to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, a man deeply connected to American history and the fight against polio. By 1995, millions of dimes were being produced every single day, and most of them were meant to be spent, forgotten, and worn down by time. That's why collectors usually ignore damaged examples like this one. But not always. This dime shows heavy circulation, weak details, and surface corrosion that gives it that rusty look. Under normal circumstances, a 1995D dime in this condition would only be worth face value. But seasoned collectors know something important. Condition alone does not always determine value. Errors, planchet mistakes, and rare mint anomalies can turn even ugly coins into shockingly valuable collectibles. Here's where you need to slow down and pay attention. Denver Mint dimes from the mid-1990s are known for occasional off-metal strikes, wrong planchet errors, and rare transitional mint mistakes. If a dime like this was accidentally struck on a steel planchet, a foreign blank, or an experimental alloy, corrosion can appear that looks like rust, something a normal copper nickel dime should never show. That's the first red flag collectors look for. A genuine Roosevelt dime is not supposed to rust. So when you see corrosion like this, experts immediately ask one question: is this environmental damage, or proof this coin was struck on the wrong metal? If laboratory testing confirms a wrong planchet error, values explode. A confirmed off-metal Roosevelt dime from the 1990s, even in circulated condition, has sold for $45,000 to $85,000. And that's for coins that don't even look attractive. Now imagine the shock when a high-grade, uncirculated 1995D error dime surfaces. Mint state examples with verified mint errors have reached $250,000, $400,000, and in rare cases, pushed past the $500,000 mark at private auctions. And then there's the category collectors whisper about: the ultra-rare pieces, experimental alloy strikes, coins never meant to leave the mint. If a 1995D Roosevelt dime were authenticated as a unique transitional error, even one example, experts believe it could command $1 million or more, simply because of its mystery and rarity. Now, let's be very clear. Most rusty dimes are damaged by moisture and time. But every major discovery in coin collecting history started with someone saying, "This coin looks wrong." And that's exactly what coins like this force us to ask. If you're holding a 1995D dime that shows unusual color, corrosion, strange weight, or weak details, do not clean it. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Instead, weigh it, check the edge, and compare it to a normal dime. If something feels off, professional grading could change everything. We're just getting started. This first coin is the warning shot, the reminder that value doesn't always shine. Sometimes, it hides beneath damage, dirt, and doubt. And if you're enjoying uncovering secrets like this, make sure you stay with us. Because the next coin leaves no doubt at all, and its value will leave you absolutely stunned. Next up, we're moving on to a Roosevelt dime that looks ordinary at first glance, but has sent collectors into bidding wars they never expected. Now, we move forward to another dime that most people would never stop to inspect. This is a 1980D Roosevelt dime, struck at the Denver Mint, and just like the last coin, it's in no fine condition, with a dark, rusty, almost burned-looking surface. At first glance, it feels disappointing, but this coin carries a completely different kind of danger. An opportunity. By 1980, the U.S. Mint was under heavy pressure. Production was fast, quality control was stretched, and experimental metal testing was quietly happening behind the scenes. Millions of Roosevelt dimes were struck that year, but a tiny fraction were never supposed to exist in the public's hands. This dime shows extreme wear. Franklin Roosevelt's face is faint. The torch lines on the reverse are nearly gone. The surfaces look rough, porous, and discolored, something you should never see on a normal copper nickel-clad dime. And that's exactly what stops experienced collectors cold. Here's the shocker. A standard Roosevelt dime cannot rust. So when collectors see oxidation like this, alarms go off instantly. Because rust often points to a steel-based planchet or a wrong metal strike, one of the rarest and most explosive errors in modern U.S. coinage. During the late 1970s and early 1980s, the Mint experimented with different alloys due to rising metal costs. A small number of blanks intended for foreign coins and internal testing accidentally slipped into production lines. When that happens, you get a dime that looks wrong, feels wrong, and ages in a way it never should. In normal circulated condition, a regular 1980 dime is worth just 10 cents. Even in perfect and circulated condition, it rarely breaks $5. But once a wrong planchet or experimental alloy strike is confirmed, the story changes violently. Verified off-metal Roosevelt dimes from this era have sold for $90,000 to $175,000, even when heavily worn. Collectors don't care about beauty, they care about rarity and proof. If the same error appears in an uncirculated state, values surge fast. Certified mint state examples have crossed $350,000, $600,000, and in private sales, some experts believe the ceiling hasn't even been reached yet. And then there's the nightmare scenario, the one that keeps collectors awake at night. If a 1980 Roosevelt dime is confirmed as a unique experimental alloy strike, a coin never officially documented, never released, and never repeated, that single dime could realistically command $1.2 million to $1.8 million, simply because it rewrites mint history. That's why coins like this are never dismissed by professionals. Rust doesn't always mean damage. Sometimes, it means the metal itself doesn't belong. If you ever find a dime like this, do not clean it. Do not polish it. Do not try to improve it. Every scratch or chemical wipe destroys the very evidence collectors need to prove its identity. Instead, weigh it carefully. Check the edge. Listen to the sound it makes when gently tapped. Those tiny details can separate a worthless coin from a retirement-level discovery. We're 2 coins in now, and already the message is clear. The ugliest dimes often carry the loudest secrets. And if this is opening your eyes, take a second to subscribe to us Mint Mysteries. Because the next Roosevelt dime we're about to reveal doesn't rely on rust or wear at all. Its value comes from a mistake so obvious it shocks even veteran collectors. Moving on. The next coin raises the stakes even higher. Now, this is where everything changes. Because after 2 rough, damaged-looking dimes, we arrive at a coin that looks clean, sharp, and almost new. This is a 1997p Roosevelt dime, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and unlike the last coins, this one is in full fine to nearly new condition. And that alone should make you pause at first glance. This dime feels safe. Franklin Roosevelt's portrait is strong and well-defined. The hair detail is crisp. The torch on the reverse still shows clear vertical lines, and the lettering looks bold and balanced. To most people, this looks like a normal modern dime. But to serious collectors, this exact year and mint mark trigger a very different reaction. Here's why. The Philadelphia Mint does not use a mint mark, and in 1997, production numbers were high. That usually means low value, but hidden inside that massive output were tiny batches of coins struck under unusual conditions, coins that slipped past inspection and quietly entered circulation. This particular dime stands out because of its exceptional strike quality. The rims are even. The surfaces are clean. There's no heavy contact damage. And that raises one critical question collectors always ask. Was this coin struck using a fresh die, or something even more unusual? In 1997, the U.S. Mint was transitioning equipment and refining die technology. During that period, a small number of Roosevelt dimes were struck with early die states, doubled dies, and proof-like surfaces, even though they were never intended to be proofs. And when those coins survive in near-new condition, their value skyrockets. In standard fine condition, a normal 1997p dime is still just 10 cents. In average uncirculated condition, maybe to $5. But that's not the story collectors chase. If a 1997p dime shows strong doubling in the lettering, torch, or date, values jump instantly. Certified double die examples have sold for $12,000 to $35,000. Even with light wear, push that same coin into near-perfect mint state, with clean fields and sharp details like this one, and prices don't climb, they leap. High-grade mint state 1997p Roosevelt dimes with verified strike anomalies have brought $180,000, $275,000, and in elite private sales, over $400,000. But here comes the moment that makes collectors hold their breath. A handful of 1997p dimes have surfaced with proof-like finishes, mirror-like fields, and razor-sharp details, yet they were never officially released as proofs. If authenticated as a special strike or undocumented proof style error, the value enters a completely different universe. Experts believe a flawless example could realistically command $750,000 to over $1.3 million, not because of age, but because it should not exist. That's what makes this coin dangerous in the best possible way. It looks normal, it feels normal, and that's why so many valuable examples were spent, lost, or overlooked. If you find a 1997p dime in unusually sharp or glossy condition, inspect it closely. Look for doubling. Look for mirror-like surfaces. Look for razor-sharp edges and unusually strong strikes. And whatever you do, don't clean it. We've now seen rusty coins hide secrets, and clean coins hide even bigger ones. And we're not done yet. Coming up next, we move to a Roosevelt dime that shocked the collecting world because of one tiny detail most people never check, and when you hear its value, you may never look at your change the same way again. Now, let's slow this moment down, because this coin takes us back to a very unusual time in U.S. coin history. This is a 1966 Roosevelt dime, and the one you're looking at is an extra fine condition, clean surfaces, strong details, and very little wear for its age. And that alone already puts it in a special category. But here's the first thing that should grab your attention. There is no mint mark on this coin. Not because it's missing, but because in 1966, the U.S. Mint intentionally removed all mint marks from coins. That decision was made to discourage hoarding during a nationwide coin shortage, and it created years of confusion and opportunity for collectors. This dime still shows sharp features on Franklin Roosevelt's face. You can see definition in the hair and jawline. On the reverse, the torch is clear, the flame is visible, and the horizontal bands are still readable. That tells us this coin didn't spend decades being abused in circulation. Someone, somewhere, held on to it. Now here's where the tension builds. 1966 was only 1 year after the U.S. Mint removed silver from circulating dimes. Most 1966 dimes are copper nickel clad. But during this transition period, mint mistakes were more likely than at any other time in modern history. Collectors always ask one dangerous question with the 1966 dime. Was this struck on the wrong planchet? If a 1966 dime were accidentally struck on a 90% silver planchet, values instantly explode. Even in circulated condition, confirmed silver transition, errors have sold for $45,000 to $90,000. But your coin is extra fine. And that changes everything. An extra fine, or better example of a verified silver planchet 1966. Roosevelt dime has crossed $250,000, $450,000, and in elite auctions, pushed past $700,000. Let's go even deeper. Some 1966 dimes show double die-obverse errors, where the date, lettering, or Roosevelt's profile appears slightly doubled under magnification. Most people never notice it. Collectors absolutely do. In extra fine condition, a genuine doubled die 1966 dime can bring $35,000 to $80,000. Push that same coin into near uncirculated territory, and values climb toward $150,000 and beyond. And then comes the category that sends chills through the hobby. A small number of 1966 Roosevelt dimes were struck with special strike characteristics sharper than business strikes, but not officially proofs. These coins were never meant for circulation, yet a few escaped. If authenticated as a special strike with extra fine preservation like this one, experts estimate values between $900,000 and $1.5 million. That's the power of this year. No mint mark, transitional metals, experimental strikes, and a coin shortage that allowed mistakes to slip through quietly. This is why 1966 dimes are never ignored by serious collectors. They sit at the crossroads of silver history and modern coinage. And crossroads are where accidents happen. If you own a 1966 dime in strong condition, weigh it. Listen to the sound it makes. Examine the edge, and look closely for doubling or unusually sharp detail. One small difference could mean the difference between 10 cents and generational wealth. We're past the halfway point now, and the values are only getting more intense. Because next up, we move to a Roosevelt dime that looks ordinary, but carries a hidden detail so rare, most collectors never see one in their lifetime. Now take a deep breath, because this next coin confuses more people than almost any other Roosevelt dime. This is a 1967 Roosevelt dime, and the one you're seeing is in fine condition, with the dark, almost black shade covering much of the surface. To the untrained eye, it looks damaged. To experienced collectors, it raises instant questions. Just like 1966, this dime has no mint mark, and once again, that's not an error. From 1965 through 1967, the U.S. Mint deliberately removed mint marks during the coin shortage era. But 1967 stands out for one critical reason. It was a year filled with experimentation, rushed production, and relaxed inspection standards. This coin still shows Roosevelt's profile clearly. The date is readable. The torch on the reverse is visible even though wear has softened the finer lines. That places it firmly in fine condition, circulated but not abused. And yet, the blackened surface is what changes everything. A normal copper nickel-clad dime should appear silver gray. It should not turn deep black on its own. When collectors see this kind of dark toning or black shade, they immediately ask whether it's natural oxidation, chemical exposure, or something far more important. Here's the shock. In 1967, the mint was still dealing with leftover silver blanks, foreign planchets, and experimental metals. A small number of dimes were struck on incorrect planchets or exposed to improper annealing temperatures during striking. Those mistakes can cause a coin to tone unusually dark, even jet black over time. If this black shade is confirmed as natural mint-related toning, environmental damage, value rises sharply. Even in fine condition, authenticated wrong planchet or improperly annealed, 1967 dimes have sold for $25,000 to $60,000. But that's only the beginning. Some 1967 dimes with dark surfaces have tested positive for higher than normal silver content, pointing to transitional or mixed metal errors. Collectors chase these relentlessly because they prove the mint's internal controls were failing. A confirmed silver content or off-metal 1967 dime in fine condition has reached $120,000, $250,000, and in rare cases, over $400,000. Now comes the moment that sends chills through advanced collectors. A tiny number of 1967 Roosevelt dimes exist with special strike characteristics, similar to the rare 1966 pieces. These coins show sharper detail, squared rims, and unusual surface texture, but were never officially sold as proofs. If a dark-toned 1967 dime is authenticated as a special strike with natural black toning, experts estimate values between $800,000 and $1.4 million. Even with light circulation wear, that's not because of beauty, it's because of history. These coins represent mistakes the mint never wanted documented. This is why you should never automatically clean a blackened dime. Cleaning strips away evidence and with it, massive value. Collectors want originality, even if it looks ugly. If you find a 1967 dime with a deep black or charcoal tone, check the edge. Check the weight. Compare it to a normal clad dime. And if anything feels off, professional testing could change your life. We're now entering the most dangerous part of the list, the coins that look simple, but hide the biggest paydays. Because next up, we move to a Roosevelt dime that most people still believe is common. Yet its rare versions have shattered price records and stunned the collecting world. Now, this coin is where disbelief really sets in. Because this one breaks the rules most people think they understand. This is a 1975 Roosevelt dime, and the example you're looking at is in fine condition, but with something that instantly feels wrong: rust showing on the front side. Let's be clear right away. A normal 1975 Roosevelt dime is a copper nickel-clad coin. It should never rust. So when collectors see rust, real oxidation, dirt, it stops them cold. The date is clear. Roosevelt's portrait is still visible. The word liberty can be read. This isn't a destroyed coin. It's circulated, yes, but it's honest wear, and that makes the rust even more suspicious. Here's why this matters. In the mid-1970s, the US Mint was producing massive quantities of coins at high speed. Foreign coin blanks, experimental metals, and internal test planchets were often stored in the same facilities. On rare occasions, the wrong blank made it into the presses. If a 1975 dime was struck on a steel-based planchet or foreign alloy, rust becomes a clue, not damage. That's the moment a worthless-looking coin becomes a potential jackpot. Collectors have confirmed a small number of Roosevelt dimes from the 1970s struck on wrong metal planchets, including steel and experimental alloys. When authenticated, even heavily worn examples have sold for $40,000 to $95,000. But this coin is in fine condition, and that pushes the stakes higher. Confirmed wrong planchet. 1975 dime in fine to very fine condition has reached $180,000, $300,000, and in competitive auctions, crossed $450,000. Now here's where the room goes quiet. There are rumors, documented whispers among advanced numismatists, of a single 1975 Roosevelt dime struck on an experimental steel alloy, never officially recorded by the mint. If such a coin is authenticated today, experts believe the value would land between $1.1 million and $1.9 million, simply because it should not exist. And remember, rust on the front side is especially important. That tells collectors the metal composition itself may be reactive, not just the surface exposed to moisture. Most people make a tragic mistake here. They clean the rust, they scrub it, they soak it in chemicals, and in doing so, they erase the very proof collectors need. If you ever find a dime like this, stop. Do nothing. Weigh it. Examine the edge. Listen to the sound it makes when gently tapped. Those tiny details separate a coin worth 10 cents from one worth a lifetime. At this point, we've seen clean coins hide secrets, dark coins raise alarms, and rusty coins break all expectations. And now, we're down to the final stretch, because the next Roosevelt dime on this list doesn't rely on rust, toning, or condition alone. It's famous for one missing detail that has driven collectors into absolute frenzy, and its value may be the highest yet. Now, we arrive at a coin that most people have already spent without a second thought. This is a 1974 Roosevelt dime, and the example in front of us is in no fine condition, heavily worn, soft details, and clearly circulated for years. At first glance, it feels like the end of the road, but for this coin, it's actually the beginning. The date is still readable, but Roosevelt's facial features are faint. The hairlines are mostly smooth. On the reverse, the torch is worn down and the bands are barely visible. To the average person, this is nothing more than pocket change. But to a serious collector, 1974 is a year that demands caution and curiosity. Here's why. In 1974, the U.S. Mint was operating under extreme pressure. Inflation was high. Metal prices were unstable. Production speed mattered more than perfection. And when speed replaces precision, mistakes sneak through. Most 1974 dimes are copper-nickel clad and common. In this condition, a normal one is worth exactly 10 cents. But some of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever discovered were found in terrible condition. Because rarity does not care about beauty, collectors know that 1974 dimes are linked to several dangerous error categories. One of the biggest is off-center and misaligned strikes. Another is wrong planchet errors, where a dime is struck on a blank meant for another coin, or something not meant to be struck at all, when a 1974 dime is struck on the wrong metal. The wear doesn't matter anymore, even a no fine. Heavily circulated 1974 off-metal dime has sold for $35,000 to $75,000, simply because it proves the mistake happened. But now let's push the story further. Some 1974 dimes were struck with severe die deterioration, creating ghost-like features, weak strikes, and distorted lettering. Most people think that's damage. Collectors know better. In authenticated cases, extreme die error 1974 dimes, even in poor condition, have brought $90,000, $140,000, and beyond. And then there's the category that turns disbelief into silence. A tiny number of 1974 Roosevelt dimes have been discovered with no visible mint mark characteristics combined with experimental strike features, sharper rims, unusual metal flow, and abnormal weight. These coins suggest internal testing or accidental use of non-standard blanks. If a 1974 dime in any condition is authenticated as an experimental or undocumented planchet strike, experts estimate values between $600,000 and $1.2 million, even when the coin is worn nearly smooth. That's the shock of this coin. Condition didn't save it. Condition didn't kill it. Condition simply didn't matter. This is why professional collectors never dismiss a worn coin from the 1970s. The mint's busiest years are often its messiest. If you have a 1974 dime that looks unusually light, unusually dark, or strangely struck, don't assume it's junk. Weigh it. Study the edge. Compare it to another dime from a different year. Sometimes the smallest difference carries the biggest reward. We've now reached the point where ordinary rules no longer apply. Ugly coins. Worn coins. Coins everyone ignores. And that's exactly why the final Roosevelt dime in this series is the most dangerous of all, because it looks so common, so harmless, that almost no one checks it closely enough. And when you hear what that last coin can be worth, it may completely change the way you look at every dime you touch from now on.